because the relationships then there'll be a time when time draws you apart. Matter, it's still functions. So now we'll say thanks for coming, Spalding, and
hi and welcome. Today's class will be focused entirely on one playwright, Daniel McIver. Daniel McIver is a Canadian playwright. He is a highly accomplished playwright. He's won an Obie Award, he's won multiple Dora Mavor Moore Awards, and his work has been published all over the world and produced, so he tours a great deal. He's working on a new play right now, which we will talk about at the end, and this week you've all read his play, Who Killed Spalding Gray? In this class, we're going to be touching on some larger themes that include metatheatre, postmodern theatre, and representations of addiction in the theatre. So we are lucky enough to have with us today Daniel McIver. Welcome, Daniel McIver. So today we are speaking with Daniel McIver. We're going to be talking about three of his plays. Daniel is a highly accomplished writer, and we'll just be talking about three. One of them, a collaboration with Daniel Brooks called Monster. One of them, a two-hander called A Beautiful View, and of course the one you're all familiar with because you read it this week, Who Killed Spalding Gray? I feel, Daniel, that your work is more invested in asking questions than it is in solidifying this is the answer, this is the truth, this is what human nature is, this is what people do. I feel like what your work does is toss these questions out for us to consider for ourselves.
Yes, because I don't start from an idea. I start from a theme, maybe, or a feeling, or a theme, a general sort, and then ideas grow from that organically. It's not. There are certain theater writers like Howard Barker or Tom Stoppard, Carol Churchill, who tend. I feel like they're people who have an idea and write to it, and I write toward idea, and so that I think that is. And this brings us also to I know something you want to talk about is metatheatre, which is this thing about truth. So that when we're talking in a postmodern way about theatre, addressing truth, what is true? The truth is that we have a bank of seats and a raised platform or something like that, and then the truth is that we're pretending.
That's the truth.
And the truth is also that you've come. Often with the work that I do, I'll often start with thanks for coming. Just to acknowledge that I understand that there's been some effort made to be, and also to acknowledge that we actually are in a place together, which is postmodern and of course meta, because where meta is acknowledging again the artifice or acknowledging the mechanics.
That's right. So metatheatre is very much about acknowledging the mechanics of theatre. So we know that when you're at a meta-theatrical production, you know you're watching a play. And it's not just because you know you're watching a play because you came in through the doors, but something on the stage will indicate to you that you are watching a play. And it's something that Daniel's work does a lot.
Like saying, welcome, thanks for coming. But then what you can do inside meta-theatre that's very exciting is that you also have it doesn't mean that you have to stick to that. You can go on flights of fancy, and you can suddenly become. Often, even in my solo shows, I have conversations with myself inside what you would think of as a fourth wall situation. So I stop acknowledging the audience at a certain point, and it becomes entirely artificial and entirely fantastical. And then what's wonderful about that is that it keeps the audience alert. Because they keep shifting what they think they're watching changes and changes and changes, and so I guess that's just to say once you embrace the idea of metatheatre, it doesn't mean it sounds kind of dry, but it doesn't need to be. It can be quite fantastical.
And you're still using all of the magic of theatre, for lack of a better word.
Right. So more so perhaps even.
It's just another, and then it becomes another magical state in a way. So one of the things I've noticed in reading your plays is how you'll describe your lighting cues, and so you'll have like a show state.
Yes.
And so there'll be different states, different lighting states, Lighting is often a device that's used to indicate place and time. Lighting and sound are the go-tos in theater to indicate light and sound.
Right, and also in terms of practically, you know, one of the things about making theater that's very important, especially making theater in a country like Canada, where we don't have a commercial theater like they do in the United States. So it's important that we make theater that's producible, that's doable. So often as writers, we just don't have ideas like, let's have a bunch of people emerging from a swimming pool. We just don't tend to have those ideas because we know we're not going to get that play produced. Which is funny that Metamorphosis, are you familiar?
Oh yes, I've seen that.
An American play, which they have a swimming pool, but we wouldn't do that because we just know that's likely not going to happen. So there's this sense of what's practical. How can we make it so that so light and sound are available to us in a way to create space and create sets or create changing places, which is again kind of meta, but it's also kind of postmodern. So all of these things, there's something incredibly, I've always found with meta and postmodern that there's something incredibly practical about that kind of working in that way, which allows for the magic to really rise. So, you know, a person, you know, maybe in American commercial theater, you say he emerges from the pool, and so you build a pool and somebody comes out of the pool, and in Canadian indie theater, you say he emerges from the pool and you have him dump a glass of water over his head as he stands up, which is, I would think, more magical.
Yeah. And more room for the imagination, and also for students who might be interested in theater and whose major it's not, there's a level of accessibility to theater because, as you say, all you need is space and time. Space, time, and your body.
And interestingly, silence, which is what the audience brings.
Oh, that's such an astute
right? So the audience is actively silent in order to give us, that's part of a meta acknowledgement of you're making the theater exist by giving your silence. Now there's another conversation about relaxed performance and the idea that, et cetera,
yes, different kinds of performances, which we'll cover in another class.
Yes, it's a 21st century idea of experiencing theater, kind of like a 21st century of experience a class like this.
Yeah. But the 21st century idea of experiencing theater is not entirely unlike the, say, 18th century French idea of experiencing theater, where people would pay extra money to actually be on the stage. So you would have audience on the stage. And, you know, it was a social event as much as anything else. So people were talking all the way through it. So it's interesting how almost any era kind of loops back around.
True.